Hello and welcome. This is Lisa Jones, and you are listening to the Exploring Death podcast. Welcome to the Exploring Death podcast. I'm Lisa Jones, your host, and today I have Patty Lennon with me. Patty Lennon is a former corporate banker who transitioned to an intuitive coach, and part of her willingness and her courage to be able to transition to truly being herself was witnessing and helping her mother cross over to the other side. I am thrilled to be able to talk to her today, as we both had a similar experience. I lost my mother and was able to walk her through her journey as well. And I think this information, this conversation is going to be eye-opening for anybody who hasn't experienced losing a loved one, especially their mother, but also for people that have, to get validation and to know that you're not alone and that these amazing, wonderful, crazy things happen to all of us. And it's okay to talk about. And not only is it okay, but it's part of shining light on death and helping people become more comfortable and become more embracing in this whole wild, crazy experience of what we call death. So welcome, Patty Lennon.
Oh, thank you for having me here, love.
Hi, sweetheart. I am so thrilled. We talked a few weeks ago and you had offered to be on the podcast, and I could not stop thinking about it. So I feel like this is a conversation that is so necessary and so exciting to be having. And why don't we just start right into it? Tell me what happened, and we'll go from there.
Okay, we're jumping right in. So I think, there's lots of starting points when someone crosses over. Was it, when, my mom had cancer. So was it, when we got the cancer diagnosis, or was it, the last day of her life, or where do you start? There's all these different starting points. And I think for me in this particular journey, and something I really want the listeners to understand is that, she had cancer. We thought she was cured. The cancer came back a year and a half later, and she was going through treatment, and then she was taken off treatment and we were told to, get hospice. And we resisted. And I think there's a lot of people that would, in that place where we were, would think that we were in denial, and we weren't. I looked at my mom and I still felt that she wanted to live, and maybe there was some denial in me wanting her to want that. But I think it's important, at least from my perspective, to understand that I think there's only two energies that control that. It's not the doctor. It's not the person that loves the person that's sick or whatever's going on. It's it's that human being and source, or divine or God. And I really trusted that relationship was always whole, that she always, whether the doctors felt that the cancer was taking over her body or not, always had the ability to heal. But I didn't do it in some deluded place where I thought, if I pray hard enough, she'll definitely live. I knew there was a strong chance that wasn't what we were looking at. And for me, the starting point, really for our conversation is the day I walked into her house, and I'd been there every day. And it was months after this, put her on hospice thing. And I looked at her and I could see that she had decided to cross. There was a look, and I know what that is.
Right.
And what?
I said correct. Yes.
Yeah. And, my intuitive gifts had already opened up. I hadn't spent my entire life being intuitive, of, being able to see energy and know things beyond the five senses. My whole life, that didn't happen until I was 35. And this was, I'd say I was 30. Well, it was 6 years ago. So I guess it was 39. But I could see, by looking at her, that was a journey she was about to take. And it's a heartbreaking knowledge to hold. And yet one of the things I'm so grateful for is I was able to hold it without denial and to just decide to be in it. Because having given birth to my children, and knowing that was a journey, I feel like the trajectory of the journey for my mom to cross over was similar in that there were stages and there were moments that she was in her body and moments she wasn't, even while she was still technically alive. And it was beautiful. It was really beautiful. I mean, in the most heartbreaking way, but beautiful in and of itself. And when I see other people kind of fighting that at the end, not the person that's crossing over, everyone's journey is individual, but when the loved one is really fighting it, I really pray that they can find the openness, because I think what you get to experience and learn is just, it's awe-inspiring.
Absolutely. And I love that you brought in the fact of giving birth, because that, to me, it's the full cycle, the full circle, to be with somebody as they cross over. And to me, the experience is that of giving birth to the other side. And we're the ones pushing, or maybe not pushing is the right word, but escorting or supporting them as they go on their journey, which, wow, it brings a whole new thought of my idea, or to my mind, about giving birth. I mean, maybe on the other side, as that baby is being pushed out of our bodies, there's actually a whole team of angels and passed away loved ones that are helping them push through and be welcomed into this earth. And that, to me, is probably one of the most amazing, beautiful aspects of death is the journey that they're going on. And for me to have seen my husband when he passed and see where he was going, that opened that whole new world to me, to understand the beauty and the awe-inspiring experience that our loved ones are going to. And again, not to say that I have the answers by any means, but after hearing so many near-death experiences and having my own experience, I feel really confident that if nothing else, we're going into this realm of pure unconditional love. And that's really all we need to know.
Yeah. Yeah. So where do we go from here?
Well, I'm just curious for you, as you said, when you went through this experience, it really helped open up your understanding of who you were and gave you confidence more so in your life and living your life. And can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. And I'm going to apologize in advance. I can feel the tears coming already.
Oh, don't apologize. Tears are just our way of sharing our true unconditional love with each other. So thank you.
So, that day that I walked into her house, she had been tired often when I've come to visit. And so I said, Mom, why don't you go lay down? And she said, I don't want to, because I don't want to lose that time, which is silly. I was there like every day, and I said, but I'll come lay with you. You need to rest. Like, I could see it. And we laid down, and it's one of my most precious memories. And it was also a huge turning point in the way that I saw my own life. So we were laying there, and I said, Mom, is there anything that you haven't done yet? Something that you want to do? And to me, I was thinking, like, do you want to go to the lake? I wasn't.
You weren't thinking about jumping out of an airplane or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, like no Sting concerts or anything. Right. And she said, I never wrote my book. And that shocked me, because my mom was not a writer. In fact, as I got older, I would write her very long birthday cards, or, I was always good at expressing my emotion. And she would always say that she didn't like the fact that she couldn't give me back the same gift that I had always given her in like cards and stuff. It just wasn't her nature. And for her to say she wanted to write a book was like, wow. I thought, oh God, there was this big dream inside of you. And I had always felt, because she was an at-home mom, and it wasn't just at home. She had 3 senior citizens living in the house with us. So she had my grandfather, my great aunt, my great uncle. She also had taken my cousin in when I was born to live with us. So she was taking care of her, and she had her sister living with us. I mean, we lived in a gigantic house, you know. So she was just always taking care of all these people. And I thought she really did give up her life. Like there was something important to her. And I said, what was the book about? Now my wheels are spinning. Like I'm determined to get this book written, right? Like, these are the delusional thoughts you have when your loved one is dying and they tell you they want to write a book. And she said it was the book of love. It was the book of how much I loved you, your brother, and your sister. And something happened in me that shifted. Like I had a matrix moment, you know, where like the reality shifts, because at the time I was working a lot teaching women with children how to care for themselves better. And a lot of it had been inspired by my journey, which had been kind of a trajectory of watching my mom overgive. And I thought, see, she's at the end of her life. She's regretting this. And the reality was, no, that wasn't it at all. It was, she wanted one more way to love. And it just shifted everything for me, because I realized that was her purpose, was to love. And she had done it in so many ways and in such big ways. And having that conversation with her, it freed something in me that I guess was tethered to a belief that in some small way I had held her life back, you know?
Right.
And we had a very deep and loving relationship. So it wasn't that there was any angst in our relationship, but I think just, I always, you know, as a child, I just always wanted to make her life easier because everything just seemed so hard, you know? And there she was at the end of her life with really no regrets, you know? I mean, just that she didn't leave a document of how much she loved us, you know? So that was big for me, because it seemed to release me of ideas about what being this overgiving mother figure really had meant for her, and ultimately what might mean for me. And then beyond that, those days after that, I just started to realize what it looks like to actually be a soul in a human body. And so I'm just going to kind of shift gears to something less, you know, that you can kind of hold on to and point to. And that was that from that day on, in very small ways at first, I could see when she left her body. Like she might be conscious and she might be there, but I could kind of feel her soul being more out of her body than in. And I could see that she was practicing to leave her body, you know? And all of the stories you normally hear, you know, she had loved ones start to show up for her. And that was really beautiful, because while she was sick through her cancer treatments, the first time she had cancer, she broke her hip right before she was supposed to start chemo. And because they felt the chemo was so necessary, they postponed fixing her broken hip. She had to go through all her chemo with a broken hip. And so she was in horrific pain sometimes. It was 3 months. And one of her sisters who has crossed over, who I had never met, started showing up. It was a sister that had died at a very young age. And every time she would put her hands on my mother, I could see my mother's pain relax, and like my mom's body relax. And I could see that the pain start to drain out of her. And I very tentatively at first started to tell her what was going on. And because we were raised Irish Catholic, this kind of went against, you know, what we believe and know to be true. And when I described the person to my mother, and I thought I was seeing my grandmother just as a young person, my mom confirmed it was her sister Anne that I had actually never met and never saw a picture of. Like it just wasn't something that had been captured. So she would have the idea that Anne was there, but she never saw Anne herself. Mm-hmm. And now at the end of her life, Anne was coming and her mother was coming, and she was just getting the affirmation of all of this faith she had put in my sight, which took a lot of courage for her, because it really kind of went against what we believe as Irish Catholics. It kind of lent itself to the sin side of the
right. Absolutely. Which again is part of this, my whole podcast idea of exploring death is removing the stigma, all of the darkness and the shame and the uncomfortableness around talking about death and what we all experience. This is what I experienced in the corporate world, where when people knew what I was doing and that I could connect, they would come up to me in secret, like, oh my gosh, Lisa, something happened. My father passed. And then I saw him come to me. And what does this mean? And what do I do with this? People don't know what to do with all of this because we don't talk about it. So having these conversations are so important to know that this is normal. This is natural. This is part of how our existence here on earth works.
It is. And I think, because babies are nonverbal, we don't have this experience of what they're experiencing, right? Mm-hmm. But that for the beginning of the human existence. But at the end, if you're lucky enough and your loved one is verbal still, is still conscious, you have access to a knowledge that we are in constant communion with the divine. We are in constant engagement with this loving source who's guiding us and co-creating our life with us based on what we want. And that was really powerful for me, to see that in action, to have known it from a place of faith, but then to see it embodied was just incredibly powerful.
Absolutely. And just explain a little bit more. So were you actually seeing your aunt, visually? You could tell energetically, but also physically with your eyes, you were seeing something.
Well, so I think people who are purely clairvoyant and can see at a really high level, clairvoyance is not my primary gift. I'm clairsentient, so I feel first, and then clairvoyance is second, and then clairaudience is last. When I hear something, it's very crisp and clear, but I don't often hear. So, the way I describe it to people is if I told you to hold out your hand and visualize an ice cream cone in that hand and really see it, it's not really there, but you can see it, right? So that's the way I see. And I believe that people who have pure clairvoyance can see it with much more clarity than I do, but I don't know, I have no idea what it looks like in someone else's.
Exactly.
But I could get, I knew the print on the dress, I knew details. It wasn't just a vague sense of a person. There was details of clothing and of hairstyle and of age, all of that was there. And also positioning in the room. My mom would point to my grandmother and I could see her.
Wow.
And where I had already seen her and it was in the exact position my mom was pointing, mm-hmm. So it was very affirming, understanding of my own gifts too.
Absolutely. How wonderful to have that experience of having a third party kind of confirming what you're feeling and seeing and experiencing. That's beautiful.
And I think the other thing is that, it showed me that our ability to open that top chakra, to open up that intuitive area, where we receive information. And I feel like it's visually on top of my head, but wherever is a lot within our control, because I was wide open while my mom was crossing over, because I was wide open. That was the priority for me,
Right.
I scratched up the car a couple of times. I'm a very safe driver. My perception in the world was a little off during that time. I've never gotten into an accident. And yet when I pulled the minivan into the garage 3 times during that period, I raked it along the side of the garage. So there's downsides to this open top chakra stuff.
That's right. That's right.
There is a reason to stay grounded and not walk around with your chakras wide open.
Absolutely. Wow.
And then I think one of the most magical, if that's the right word for experiences, was probably within the last like week of her being alive, where my brother and sister they had to travel in to get there. We were all asleep in her condo with my dad. Like we were all sleeping on like the floor and the couch, because it really didn't sleep the number of people that were there that wanted to be close to her. And I remember like waking up in this middle sleep wake period and seeing her, but not her body, because she couldn't even walk at that point, seeing her going around and covering each of us with a blanket.
Oh, wow. Beautiful.
And just knowing that how she behaved in those moments was so true to who she was. And that, yes, this was her, you know, this was, even in death, she was still making sure we were warm, you know, even though there were no real blankets there. there were no blankets moving. I just want to clarify.
Right. It was that energetic feeling or knowing that that's what she was doing and giving you love in that additional way, which is stunningly beautiful. Amazing. And so what about on the day that she passed? Was there anything that happened or?
Yeah, so the day that she passed was interesting because it was the one day. So the way that this journey kind of went was, so now I saw that that I felt like she was going to cross. And then I kind of waited a couple more days, you know, doubting that maybe I didn't quite see what I saw. Realized what I saw, called my sister to come. And she had a little one at home, and she was already scheduled to come a week from then. And she was like, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not sure, but I'm sure enough that I don't think it's worth it, like for you to stay home. So I think you better get your tail up here." So, she came, and then together we decided to call my brother, who was in Ireland on his honeymoon. Been a honeymoon. Yeah. And have them come home. And that was a really hard decision to make. So anyway, they come home, and we really weren't even sure that my mom would hold on long enough, but then she actually held on for weeks after that. And so there was like, we were constantly in this relationship of, is this it? And then my brother slowly went home to Boston. She went home to DC with plans to come back. And, the day that my mom did cross was the day we were convinced she wasn't going to. Like every night one of us had been sleeping there, even though we had at that point a hospice or like a nurse helping us with my mom, because she was at home. One of us was always staying there. And for some reason, we were both convinced that was not going to be that night. And she went to her hotel room and I went home, and that was the night she crossed. And so there was nothing like, I didn't, you know, wake up in the middle of the night when she crossed, you know, or anything like that. But the reason I tell that is because later on, a couple of years later, my husband's dad passed, and we were all at the hospital with him, and my husband's siblings refused to leave. And I said, "You've got to get some sleep." Like they'd been there 24 hours, I think at that point. I said, "I promise you, if he wants you there when he crosses, you will be there. And if he does not want you there when he crosses, you will not be there no matter what you do."
Right.
And because at that point I'd been close to other people's journeys because people had an easier time talking to me. And I think that was so interesting because my mom was able somehow to insinuate, or through angels or whatever, a confidence that she was not going to cross. Because I'm sure my sister and I, as much as we wanted to, we were telling her, "You can go, you can cross." Our hearts were still holding her here, you know, and she needed us to not be there for that to happen.
Wow. Beautiful. It reminds me of my mother's passing, which was very different in that it was a sudden-ish, I'll say. She was in Hawaii on vacation, a month-long vacation, and I actually came to visit her for a week and had such a lovely time with her. And not only that, but my flight home was delayed because of a big snowstorm out on the East Coast. So I got to stay an extra day and a half with her, which again, in retrospect, was just such a gift. And when I left, and this is that, I guess I never get the Claire's right. The knowing one. What is that, Claire?
I forget.
Okay. Anyway, as I left Hawaii, I had this overwhelming, it was almost like I walked through a door. I mean, like you talked about being in a Matrix moment. It was like I walked through this door, and it was just this knowing I would be back in Hawaii and something would have happened to my mother. And it happened so quickly. And I didn't dwell on it, but it was just a knowing. And I went home, and I actually ended up flying to Ireland the next day for my nephew's confirmation, and got home a week later. And that's when she had called and left me a message and said, I love being here in Hawaii so much. I never want to leave, but tomorrow is my last day, and I'm so sad. And, I'll talk to you tomorrow or whatever. And later that evening is when my stepdad called and said, oh my God, your mom had a stroke and was in the hospital. And again, it was all unfolding, which I didn't know. So I immediately made plans to go back to Hawaii. I mean, it was literally a week prior I was there, and, and then to Ireland, and then back. And then, so I repacked, and I put, I had called a driver to pick me up to take me to JFK because it was an early morning flight. And so I literally had about 3 hours to lay down, and I laid on my bed, and the next thing I know, my mom's soul came to me. It was like a tidal wave of pure love that just overwhelmed me, and just said, oh my God, you said we'd be able to communicate when I crossed over. And I was in such elation to have this beautiful energy of her. It was like you were talking about the blankets that your mom, was putting on you. I mean, that's what it felt like, was just this beautiful wave of her energy and pure love. And I thought she had died. I thought, when I woke up, I was like, oh my God, my mom's died. And I didn't want to know that until I got to Hawaii. So I actually called my brother on the way to the airport, and I said, oh my God, mom came to me last night. And he said, she came to me too. And I was like, oh my God, she must've died. And
She's doing the rounds.
She's doing the rounds. Exactly. And so I got to Kauai and went straight to the hospital, and walked into the room where she's at, and she sat up and looked me right in the eyes. And I mean, it was just this pure moment of recognition. And then she lay down, and she was still in her body. I mean, that's what you're talking about, your mom being in and out of her body. I'd never experienced that with the death of my husband and the death of my father. But with my mom, she was in and out of her body for then the next 4 or 5 days before she did pass. But it's interesting how there are so many variations on this whole death experience, right? I mean, people coming in and out of their bodies, seeing things, hearing things, knowing things. I believe that's why I'm so fascinated by it, because it's a never-ending story of understanding, or even trying to understand it. It's just amazing. So I love hearing your stories, and and hearing that we have similar, experiences, and yet very different. And it's just amazing. So.
Well, I think when I read Art of Living Happy, it was right when I first met you. My mom had already crossed, and I think that, just, you didn't ask me this, you just kind of stated it, about that you find yourself so called to this topic. When I read that book for the first time, I felt like someone understood, even though our journeys had been so different, I felt like someone understood the depth of the experience and found the language for it. And that was so comforting for me. So I just want to thank you for that, because the book's amazing. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And it's interesting because that book, I truly believe, was channeled through me. I mean, it just came out, and I had an amazing book coach who helped me so much, and a great editor. But I literally read that book and think, who wrote this book? Because
who wrote this awesome book?
Right. I was like reading it or crying when I was reading it. It felt out of body, literally, when I read it. So, but thank you for that beautiful mention. Well, I would like to do a little reading for you if you're open to that.
I would love that, but I did just want to tell one more story because
Yes,
I realized I
please.
forgot to tell one of the most important stories. So, months after my mom crossed, I live in a town called Brookfield, and it's right next door to Sandy Hook, and the Sandy Hook shooting, the tragedy happened that year. So, just about 5 months after my mom's crossing, and I was so gutted, and I was already just still in grief, and then for this horrible thing to happen and just to know people so close that were affected, I just was asking why. you know One of my friends once said to me, like, well, it's easier for you that your mom passed because you have this gift, right, where you can still talk to her and all of that. And I said, you know what, sometimes it's a lot harder because you know how much choice was involved in that crossing, and you know how good it is on the other side. And you're stuck here.
Oh, yes.
So it's
I
a
can relate
double-edged
to that.
sword. And so I was kind of in the space of like, why? And also like, when do I get to go? Right. Even though I had small children and I was happy to be there for them, there was still this ache. And my mom came to me in this very sudden, powerful way. And she said, what's on the other side is so beautiful that you do not have to worry about these children. Like, just understand that they are they're surrounded by love. And she gave me the experience of the love she felt. And she said, the thing that I felt first when I came over was all the love that I just couldn't let in when I was on earth. She was like, I never understood how much you loved me. Now, this was a woman who, like, for all intents and purposes, did. I mean, we had an extremely loving relationship. And I just want anyone who's listening who maybe has someone that's about to cross over, questioning what that is on the other side. It's not just this beautiful, loving experience. It's the accumulation of every single thing they denied themselves, either because of guilt or worry or overwhelm. It just floods you the moment you cross over. At least that's the story. So I just wanted to offer that.
I love that. And that was exactly the feeling I got when I had that shared death experience with my husband. I was standing in the reception room for that love to be poured upon him as he entered. And I have chill bumps as I'm saying it to you, because I remember so clearly I did not want to come back. I was like, why would anybody want to come back from this? Because it's pure love and unconditional. Whereas here on earth, not so much, It's a struggle. And I completely relate to you about the idea of when do I get to go? Because sometimes it really does feel pointless and worthless being here on this earth plane when we know what's waiting for us. And yet that's why we chose to be here, right? Is to have that contrast and to really feel what it feels like to manifest and to create in a 3D world. Because once you're on the other side, it's a whole nother ball game, which I can't wait to be a part of. But at the same time, I'm here right now. And that's what we're here to do, is to experience the contrast and to have as much fun. And that's the other thing, is as many times as I've channeled people that have crossed over, one of the biggest themes is, if I had only known how much more I could have done on earth, I wouldn't have held back from the fear and the worry and the, what do people think of me? Or I didn't have enough money or any of those things. They wish they could have just gone so much bigger and so much, just more while they're here on earth. So that's what I want to encourage my listeners too, to stop doubting yourself, and whatever it is that you're dreaming or wanting or desiring or dreaming about, just do it. There's whatever you need to do it.
And I was just looking at my phone because I was trying to look. I just listened to your podcast, and it was this. Oh God, I'm going to quote him wrong, but I just encourage people to, like. That's why I was like, oh, what was his name?
Jerome Braggs or JC.
Yes, the first one.
Jerome. Yes.
Yes, that I think he did such a beautiful job at describing that. So, I love you. I just listened to all your podcasts.
Well, thank you. I know. And these topics, I mean, I am blown away by the conversations I'm having. They are so rich and so full, and yours is right there too. I mean, so filled with love and encouragement. And and direction for, I really believe that when we embrace death, that we live so much more fully in this lifetime. And that it's when you're fearful and scared and you don't want to talk about it and you're holding back and you put up shields, that's when your life just gets stagnant and can't flow. So the more that you're willing to open yourself to this quote unquote scary death idea, I think the better and more expansive your life becomes. I just have to joke because as I type, I was texting you the other day, and as I type in exploring death, when I type death, the little emojicon that comes up is a skull and crossbones. And I'm like, seriously? I mean, I once again, that's our society, right? Death is all doom and gloom and skeletons and skulls and anything to make it as scary as possible. And it's just too bad. And I'm going to change that. I'm on a mission to change that and to bring more light to it and help people realize it's just part of our everyday experience.
Mm-hmm. And I love that. You're doing such a beautiful job of it.
Well, great. All right. Well, let me pull you a few cards for those. Yay! For those that are new to this podcast, you may not know, I guess people call me a psychic medium. I don't really like that title, but whatever it is, I can somehow connect to the other side after my experience of going to the other side. And so I love to pull cards and just help people see where they're stuck, what they need to do, and what their outcome is if they do it. So, oh, this is interesting. And so you might have to help guide me where this is going. But the first card for you is simplicity. So that the first card is always where you're stuck. And so what I'm getting with that is that just in your life in general, there's just lots going on, like too much. And to me, knowing you, that just sounds like typical Patty Lennon life, right? Just always so much going on. And that really, so your action card is beauty, which for me is just, what is your heart calling you to do? Where is the beauty in what you're doing? What is it that you want to create? And the word legacy is coming in. You know, what do you, and I see those beautiful peonies behind you. They just burst open as soon as they burst into my eyes when I held up that beauty card about really creating the beautiful life that you want to live. And then your outcome card is purification, which basically means that everything else is just going to fall away when you're super focused. And I've got chills coming through when you're focused on what you really want and the beauty of what you want to create and the outcome. You're just going to have this pure, beautiful life that just flows much more efficiently and effortlessly because you're truly in the divine flow, as opposed to, when it's all cluttered up and not going in the direction you think it's going. So
good
how does that feel?
That's great. You know, it's so interesting as I was pulling into my driveway this morning after the gym, thinking about you, because I was going to get to talk to you, which is my favorite thing. And I was actually listening to the card reading for that podcast I was talking about. And I was thinking the very first thing you did for me was, your business cards had words on the back. I don't know if you still have those same business cards. That was years ago.
Right.
And you picked one for me and it was focus. And here we are again.
Yes.
Damn it. Damn it.
Well, and I think what's coming through is there's so much. It's such a vast and beautiful world to do anything and everything. And you know that. So it just pulls it all in. But with that, it can also dilute it when it's too much. And but I think for all of us, we all want it all, right? We all want to have as much in our lives as possible. And sometimes even for me right now, it's almost like I have so much choice that I don't even know what to be doing exactly. It gets a little muddled about, my whole prescription is follow my joy. And yet everything I do, I find joy in. So it's difficult to hone that down to a more simplistic way. But I think just follow your heart, follow the beauty, follow what makes your flower blossom when you think about it.
Okay. I like the tangible a little better, but all right. I love it. Thank you so much, Lisa. That's such a gift. Thank you.
Yes, you're so welcome. Well, I love this conversation. I love you, Patty. And I feel like we could talk about this all day, and we'll probably have another conversation at some point too. And until we meet again, have a wonderful day and take care.
Love you.
Love you too. Thank you for listening to the Exploring Death podcast. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Before you make any financial or legal decisions, consult a professional. This show is copyrighted by Exploring Death. Written permission must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting.